Now this hairpiece needs to be cut for my head. This is the stencil that I've cut maybe 5 or 6 years ago that may need to be pushed back a bit over time because I'm receding further and further back. If that's the front hairline, I originally started like that, but now it's starting to back to here. But I'm not gonna mess with that just yet because I've got long enough hair at this point that I can maybe brush it over a bit for now. Okay. Now with the lace pieces, I can usually just put 3 of these in, trace them with a marker, and then cut them out. So I've got 3. This may be a problem. Because the hairpiece is so see-through that when it's on my head, numbers and letters could show through. Let's just quickly look at that. Well, it looks like there's a sort of a tattoo there happening as I stick my finger through. So I would like to remove that, but I haven't been able to do it. There's almost 0 chance I'll be able to take that off without ripping the poly. So unfortunately, that's gonna have to remain. With the lace, I generally have to take into consideration the flow of the hair, the direction the hair is flowing, because I've always found it very difficult to brush in the direction opposite and have the hair go in another direction. But there are problems that don't exist here that did exist with the poly. For example, it doesn't have stitching, and I think this is easier to resolve in terms of that center part. I think this loop formation, this V-loop setup they've got here on the poly is more brushable and more directionable than the lace, which seems to be very much fixed based on the way the knots are tied. And that's another exciting thing to look forward to here. So 2 hands are not enough. I'll need a 3rd, and that will be my feet. And just the way I use my teeth and mouth to hold the scissors when I'm cutting my hair, I'll use my foot as a 3rd hand to grip onto this as required. So if possible, I'll try to avoid that spot if I can, because I don't want that to be visible at all. Now this hair comes all the way to the edges, but over on this front edge here, it's got some length to it. Once again, they've expected people who buy this hairpiece to be using 1 piece per head and not cutting it into 3. So they still haven't learned their lesson about people who've got receding hairlines not needing a crown shape. We are simply people who don't matter to them or something. I just can't figure it out, given the number of people with receding hairlines who want to cover that up. If I do cut from this side and the hairs are naturally pushing in that direction all the time, then this will be an easier way for me to see where my natural hair has been shaved back to and where the poly needs to begin. So I will maybe begin with a cut there. I just want to see how I can fit 3. 1, 2, Now see, I can't fit a third if I do that. Maybe it's longer this way than it is this way. So I'll need to take that into consideration when fitting 3 of these. So I think I need to begin here at the front, making sure that the hair at the front is actually included. It's not as easy to position this as with the lace because I can't see through it. So I wonder a little bit about how easy it will be to cut without cutting hairs. It seems like it might have reduced visibility. Also, I'm hoping that this marker will not bleed into the poly in any way at all. It will simply stay where it's drawn, and I'll neatly cut inside the lines because, as you've seen demonstrated, the poly is extremely transparent. Being 3/100ths of 1 millimeter in thickness. So the stencil was crafted by tracing around something, so that naturally gave this a wider shape, so that when the inside is cut out, it will still be large enough. Lace was able to stretch sufficiently. I assume poly will be able to as well, just in case there's any kind of minor adjustments to be made afterwards. So I've gone as far forward really as I possibly could to try to encompass that. So that should mean, hopefully, if this is the same size as all the lace pieces I've had, that I can fit 2 more. Now of course your hair will be different in terms of recession than mine. Might also be exactly the same, but if stretch is not an issue, I'd recommend you start, if you haven't measured your head before, at 6 inches between the 2 upper temples of your forehead. That should probably be similar width across between the temples as most people's heads, I would assume. Adult males at least. I don't think it would deviate too much from that. Okay, so I fit 2 stencil cuts now, and now I'll go for the 3rd. Looks like it will work. Really want to avoid including that label, but it might not be possible. Let's have a look. So you really got to stretch the poly out underneath the stencil so it doesn't gather. Okay, so that's good. I've missed the label. That means I can exclude it. But there'll be no opportunity to ever make 3 stencils that are extended beyond the size that I've already got. This will be the largest stencil that I can use on a crown shaped hairpiece with 3. And this is a Bic permanent marker. I would not recommend a temporary marker because it would smudge. And this, my fingers are dry and the ink's now dry. It's not going to smudge unless maybe I wet it, but I will cut this. Just for example, I just lick my finger. Okay, that's still not smudging, it's permanent. So use a permanent marker. I don't think there's any need to worry about using some kind of pencil that you've got to keep sharpening and making a mess with or something like that, because you're going to cut along the inside of the stencil lines. Now to do this, I'm about to learn how to do it. I know how to do it with lace because I can fully see that all the way around, but for poly it seems a little bit different, especially with these V-loops, because with the knots you can easily see where the gaps are, but this is not so easy. Let me just have a look at these instructions one more time. Cut the base down to your size, cut off the extra skin along the very front of the hairline. Wet the hair before cutting the extra skin. It makes it easier to avoid cutting the hair. If you do accidentally cut the hair, then shorter pieces of hair will hang down over the front hairline, making it look unnatural. I'm just not sure whether or not it will help me to wet the hairpiece prior to cutting this. It would add weight to hang this down, but I just don't know if it would make any difference here. The first piece I cut here now, I'm not going to wet it. I'm just going to try it without wetting it. So I'm just going to hold that with my toes, so I can use my left hand to pull it taut, and my right hand to cut it out. Let's see how this goes. So coming in from the bottom there, I'm just going to, can you see what's happening through the plastic there? The good thing is when the scissors are right up against the plastic underneath, I can see them. So let's hope I'm not cutting through any hairs. That's the challenge here. As you can see, I'm cutting on the inside of the poly, and the poly cutting is highly accurate to my cuts. It is not going to just fray into a rounded shape like the lace will. It's being exact. It is absolutely obeying these scissors right now, this poly. So I might need to really make sure at the end that it's rounded instead of jagged. Now, as you can see, the annoying cone dome shape has been reduced as a result of getting rid of that edge of the cone. This will be easier to cut out as well, hopefully, although I don't have the length I once did. We'll see how this goes. I'm wondering if I should use a Stanley knife or something on this side to make sure that it... Can you see that that's not going to obey me? I can't just fray away at it. Can you see that? It's not just slicing, it's not doing anything, it's just saying use the scissors properly. Okay, so I'm just going to try to get in here in between the V-loops if I can. Don't know what sort of damage I'm doing underneath here. Now what I'm cutting out now is the front hairline, so I really hope that I'm not cutting through any hairs, because in my last video I said that anybody who did such a thing is a moron. So let's hope that I'm not being that person. Okay. So with the scissors tip underneath, I'm still trying to forge my way through, making sure there's absolutely no black on the front there. This poly is absolutely obeying the cut of the scissors without any kind of leniency. Whatever you cut is the shape it will become. And I have the hairs underneath to consider. Hairs that I cannot see, but I have to trust at this point, before I know what I'm doing, are just getting out of the way with this base action of just trying to plow the scissors through whatever gaps there are underneath. Just taking this piece that's going to be discarded anyway, we're now going to just see how stretchy this thing is, right? And also examine the V-loops a little bit. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the camera. It's hard to tell whether this is going to look realistic or not at this point, but we can show you the stretchiness here. I am stretching that to triple its original length, and now I'm releasing. And now the result of letting it come back is a bit of a growth with some boobling out. It's not as neat as it was before, but you would never stretch it naturally that much when attaching it to your head. But it goes to show you, if you're a little bit inaccurate, you can still have some leeway. I'm not sure what would happen over time with that resistance against glue if you did stretch it into a position that it wasn't accustomed to. Now let's see how far I have to stretch it before it reaches breaking point. Okay, so it's snapped off. Might be easier to fit this onto camera if I can stretch that until it breaks. Okay, that just pinched off there. Okay, that's how it reacts to being stretched. Now I'll just try and take a front edge there, stretch that. so it was possible to pinch off a piece of poly just like that, but not obviously without some effort. It's quite strong. That bit was perforated, so if it has a perforation I expect that is now the point that will break, and it does so easily. So if there were perforations in this, it would rip more easily. Now looking at the cuts that I've done here, I'm just looking at the underside of it. That there is a messy cut, so I will now attempt to come around the outside and clean it up a bit. Now I'm going to just try to loose the hairs. I'm seeing what this feels like. So, as you saw earlier, this has been just flopped into a misshapen cousin it. So the hair is not brushed in any particular direction. So just for now, I want to see around the edges how bad my cutting was and how it affected the V's at the front. Like for example, the very front hairline, is that going to look really bad now that I've done that, or is it going to be fine? That will be the front hairline there, but I use the same manner of cutting for the entire perimeter of this piece. But I'll just put some water on it and brush it for you. Let's have a look, get some spray water for you. Make it easier to see the whole thing. It's just water in a spray bottle. Just from passing over that first part, the bristles are now wet on the brush, so that wetness continues on through these partially wet parts and makes it easier to control all of it. So from brushing a freshly cut piece without rinsing it or anything like that, some hairs will come out in the brush. And pulling on it now, after cutting, I would expect to see some hairs. So, trying to lay this out flat is not that easy because it's curling up. Okay, but if I pull from the hairs, I can now see the actual shape that I cut. And if I compare that to the stencil, it kind of does match. Maybe my stencil needs refinement. We'll see, the thing is with the lace, I never had to worry about that kind of accuracy, but I can see now that my stencil is fatter up there than this. The shape is not completely symmetrical at all. Maybe that's why I've been having hair troubles. So maybe that should have been diagonally cut more like that. So one of the sides of the front hairline don't go past the point. It should be maybe have been more of a V shape at the front hairline. Okay, so that's what it looks like from the poly side. It's interesting that even the water from the other side actually creates darker patches in the middle there. Now, I wish you could focus in better on this. Not sure if you can focus. Is it set to autofocus? I just want to check. Yeah, it's set to autofocus. Okay, so the important thing is there's nothing I could have really done differently to make the edges look any neater than that. For example, there are no 1 centimeter hairs sticking out around the perimeter that I accidentally cut through. They're either cropped right up to the edge, or they are the full length of the hair, which I assume is 6 inches. I think I've said 4 inches in some videos, but I think they're all actually 6 inches. So I'll just continue cutting out the rest in the same way. I like having this part here still attached so that I can use my toes to hold onto it. So that means I'll cut around this part first, so this can remain all the way till the end. Okay, now here's what I'm going to try to do with my first piece. I'm going to try to pre-glue it. It's something I've been meaning to do for a long time. If I ever bought this, it's the way I intended for hairpieces to work when I first heard about them, and it's the way they should work. So I'm just going to maybe spread the hair out in all directions. Here's one I prepared earlier. And just try to pull it out flat with some kind of weight. Okay, this is Walker Ultra Hold. It may be unnecessary to use such a strong glue in this instance, but I want it to stick to my head just like lace would, at least. And I also want to compare apples with apples, so everything will be equal to what I normally do if I use this glue, except for the fact that I'll have pre-glued that. This is not the easiest glue to work with, but it's the only glue that works with lace, I know that. So let's see, just to start with, if this meets at least the minimum requirements, because if it doesn't, then I can't even pre-glue at all. Okay. So it's hard to see where the glue is. Just completely removing that. Obviously the hairs don't come this way at all through the poly. So all you have to do is make sure they're not in the way at all. Go right to the edges. Right to the very front edge there. There's a bit of front hairline. Oh, that's a bit thick. It's too thick there. Oh. Endeavour to try to blend it back in that glue bit there. So the perimeter is going to obviously be the most important adhesion point all around. I don't want to create puddles. And I don't want the hair at the front to get any glue on it either. So I'm trying to be careful. This is not the best applicator. Might have been better off using an actual brush that hadn't been dipped all the way up the stem. Given that the poly is a smooth surface, it might be a problem that I can't see properly because of all the reflectiveness here, that the ultra hold may not be attaching itself exactly to the poly all the way around, but I think because of the V-loops penetrating through, the underside of the poly is actually bumpy. So that gives me enough of a surface grip to trust that the glue is probably sticking. It is hard to control the thickness with this brush, and as you can see, I'm down to the last bit of glue. I think I would need to probably build some kind of holder to keep the hairs down in all directions properly and solidly, because it would be a lot easier to just apply this if that was just flattened and taut. I really don't want to get glue on the hairs, so